let's go to the evidence first, and then we'll come back to why. That probably is better, actually. So we know that there are the most studies are done, or the best controlled studies and the biggest studies have been done with EPA. So
so let's just go back. Let's go back a step. There are several kinds of omega-3s, aren't there?
Yes, there are several kinds of omega-3s. The most commonly discussed are ALA, EPA, DHA. And EPA, DHA can be obtained from fish, or we'll come back to it later. We were talking about the fact you can also get it from algae. So they are the most common sources for those. ALA is from plant sources, so that's the kind of omega-3 you get from flax. So if you're getting it from flaxseed oil. So at the moment, whilst if I go looking, you can find some discussion of all three of those. The main evidence, especially in dogs, is with EPA. So that's where most of this talk is about, because because that's what there is that we know the most about. If we control a group of dogs, so there are several different studies, and I'm going to just kind of give you a summary of the overall results, rather than reading them to you individually. We know that these dogs, let's give you some, let me tell you the truth rather than me just making up the numbers. Hang on. There we go. Right. So one of these studies, they had 82% of the dogs in a test group within 12 weeks had increased weight bearing. These dogs that were selected for having arthritis that was severe enough that it was easy to judge. They excluded the dogs where it was equivocal and difficult to measure. Orthopedic examination, quite of these dogs are improved by the orthopedic examination. That's a bit vague, I appreciate, but that's from one of the studies. A 90-day trial showed that a significant number of dogs in the test group had a reduction in pain on palpation of the inflamed joint. There are lots of really good, I'll be honest, the vertical peak force type gait analysis things is something that is a little bit beyond me in terms of understanding the biomechanics behind it, but I would say it was significantly improved, is what
so all the parameters are improved.
Exactly. Ability to rise, running, playing, improvements in walking, and the time scale in these tends to be around 3 months, with some of them looking at a month and some of them looking at 6 months.
And is that with the doses? Are they all they worked out specifically for?
They're all high, so they're all in the range that. So actually, I was going to give you a list of the different ways to work out the dose, but one of the most commonly used ones is 100 milligrams per kilogram of EPA, or EPA combined with DHA. Most fish oils, which we were sort of talking about, most fish oils have a higher level of EPA than DHA, which makes them useful because it's the EPA that we know the most about. And most of the algae have the other way round, so they have slightly more DHA than EPA. But there's a couple of different mechanisms which help us to kind of figure out whether algae is useful, because I think it probably still could be. We just don't have quite as much in the way of evidence for it just yet.
So evidence for the quantities that you would get for each of those in it.
Exactly. And we don't have the evidence on what dosage we would need and things like bioavailability, because there are studies showing that if you have that algae oil, that the blood levels of DHA rise, which is fairly predictable because there's a high level of DHA in it. But we don't have the studies in orthopedic disease to say, well, okay, if we're talking about that ratio where actually a larger proportion of it is DHA, do we need to increase the dose to get the substantial amount of EPA as before or not? Because we always talk about it as a combined number. But
so all the studies that you were just saying about, they were fish oil based.
They're all fish oil, which makes it really difficult if you try to then translate that. Do you still need to hit the same level of EPA, or is the combined level enough? And we don't know that yet. So I'm a bit mean. I tend to just stick to the fish one, unless I've got a dog with real allergies, in which case it's better than nothing. So I do it anyway.